Hi, it's Luke with Auto Darts. Today I'm going to run you through everything you could want to know about the Proton Pack ecosystem. This is a bit of a long product video compared to our normal ones, but there's a lot going on here, and sometimes a video is just the best way to explain it. First, it's worth noting there are two different versions of the Proton Pack. The first option is a pre-built unit, and you can get that with everything set up totally ready to fire. So it will come to you. All you will need to do is plug it into a compatible blaster, charge up the battery, plug in the LiPo alarm, and you are good to go. On that note of LiPo safety, make sure you are using a LiPo alarm. Make sure you read all of the care instructions for LiPo batteries, and please be careful with them and store them properly and take it seriously. The last thing I want to hear about is somebody causing a fire or ruining their battery or their blaster or worse. The second variant of the blaster is a DIY kit. It comes with all of the same components as the pre-built. There's nothing different. The only difference is you're going to have to solder it together and assemble it yourself. Now, I've worked really hard to make this a lot easier to put together than previous products, so I think some people are going to have a lot of fun putting this together. And with the included PCB, that's printed circuit board, it is a lot easier to actually put together and solder and assemble because you've got nice solder pads to actually do most of your wiring. So I would say essentially the most difficult thing you're going to do on this entire build as far as soldering goes is soldering an XT60 connector. And if you are getting into this hobby, you better learn how to do this. So again, we have two versions, just keep that in mind going forward. This is the Proton Pack feeder. This is the core to everything there is to run this system. It can feed 20 rounds a second for forever, as long as you have the capacity of balls to hold as many as you would like. The base system includes a battery base and the body, along with the snorkel top, which we'll get to in a moment, the impeller, the blower. It will come with 7 of these clips and then optional adapters. Starting off with mounting your container, there are several ways to do a container. The first is that we are going to offer a 1-gallon container, which when you factor in the capacity of the hose, which is about 20 rounds, this holds 450, including the hose when mounted to the unit. The containers themselves are connected with interchangeable rings, and we've got a couple options. The first is a 1-gallon ring. This connects to that same 1-gallon 450 round container. Now you can order it, the container from us pre-cut with this pre-glued on here. That's an option at checkout. You also can order just the ring by itself if you want to pick up your own container and save a little on shipping or whatever. Should you want to go with a larger container, we've created just a flat plate glue-on with a little bit of texture here to help actually keep the container easily glued onto your surface. And so what you'd want to do is just simply trace this into your desired container and then cut a hole and glue it. Very, very simple. These attach onto the feed unit just by a little twist lock. And then after you twist them in place, there are 2 set screws on the ends, which just simply stop it from rotating. They don't need to be over tightened, just pretty simple screw on, lock in place connector. At the core of the whole system is this base hopper unit, and this is the feed system along with the blower housing and the outlet for your balls and your hose. On the base we've used brass inserts, and on the top brass inserts we think this is a nice polished look, and they're easy for you to deal with when you get them. So there's no need to install these. These will come pre-installed when you get your unit. Next you've got your lid. The lid's got 2 options. You can use it as is, just like that, or you can choose to use the snorkel. Now the snorkel is a 2-piece part that simply goes on top of here and will allow you to connect this to the same hose as the same type of hose as the actual feeder hose and allow you to get air in, assuming that you're putting this in an enclosed space like a backpack. This part is the impeller. This is the core to the entire system because this is what actually blows the air and pumps enough pressure into your system. We tested this extensively to get the maximum performance out of this design, and it can push quite a bit of air, enough to power the Proton Pack to push 4 feet of balls straight up vertically. Next, you've got the auger. The auger is what actually impels the balls and makes sure that they are feeding in correctly. And that's fairly simple. Cover that in the tutorial. There are hose clips included. These hose clips will keep the wire connected cleanly to your hose. That way the wire isn't flopping around and tangling. Next, we've got the battery base. This is in 2 parts and serves a couple purposes. First, it protects the electronics that are on the bottom here, including the ESC, the motor terminals, and the brushless motor, and the motor driver, our PCB. This is connected to the base with 4 screws and a 5th screw for the battery door. So on the base, you'll just see this just kind of snaps in place and the screws are connected, and then you've got access to your battery door at the end. While we're talking about the battery base, we've got 3 different battery options for the blaster. We've got 2 2700 milliamp hour batteries. One is a Nanotech, the other is a Zippy, and the third is a 1500 milliamp 35 to 70C battery. So all of these will fit inside of the battery base. Other batteries are untested. It does need to be a 3S battery, as this is a 3S only system. So in the case of these, you'd pull your battery tray and you can pop it right inside like that. And there's going to be plenty of room inside here for a LiPo alarm, along with all the other components, so it's a pretty easy fit. But this is the maximum pack you can fit, so we don't recommend trying to buy anything larger than this, and we don't recommend the 2200 milliamp packs either, because they won't fit in this current design. Next up is the driver board. Now this one, I have to thank my amazing engineer, James. He is solely responsible for making this happen, and this is one of the biggest delays in getting the board and the entire Proton pack done. It serves a number of features for the Proton pack. First, it makes wiring much easier. You'll wire this directly soldered onto your gear motor, and then you'll wire to your blaster, which is an XT60 connector on the base right here. Next, you'll wire your battery, pretty self-explanatory, to an XT60. And then lastly, you'll wire the ESC power to the ESC itself, and that just simply powers the speed control for the brushless blower. Then you'll plug in this triple jumper here. That's just for the ESC. It's the actual signal coming to the ESC. And then finally, this whole thing will solder directly onto your gear motor on the base of the unit, making the install much, much easier, much faster to service, and then most importantly, adding some of these great features. You've got a threshold and a speed rating here. The high will change the actual speed of the blower motor. If you don't need full power blower, like if you've got a shorter hose, you're better off turning that down a little bit. Threshold is the current sensing. So the way this system works is that when you set this all up, you will only have 2 wires running from your pack. And these 2 wires are simply power wires. They go directly to an XT60 at the other end, and this XT60 plugs directly into your standard blaster, your standard rewired blaster, whether that's a 3S Jupiter, a 3S Ready Perseus, Chaos, or other rival blaster. And we'll talk about the adapters and options there too. But the coolest thing about this is that you don't have to rewire your blaster to use this, and you don't have to change your blaster. You simply plug that XT60 connector in, and you are ready to go, because this unit powers, the combination of this board and the unit itself, it powers your blaster and it powers itself, and every time you hit that rev trigger, it will spin this up automatically. Next, I want to talk to you really quickly on the adapters. There are a number of adapters, and we do have a separate page for that, but essentially this blaster is set up to work with a variety of different 3S blasters. This is the standard swivel, and this swivel is the same one that's on the actual pack itself, but it's also used on the blaster side. We also have a 90-degree swivel, which is exactly what you'd think. It clamps right onto the hose, and it's a 90-degree. Next, we have a double swivel, which is a 90-degree swivel that can swivel like this and turn this direction. The 90-degree with the extra swivel is included with the Perseus due to the orientation of the ball inlet on that blaster. So all of these one of these is included with each adapter, so keep that in mind, but you can buy these separately as well. Moving on to the adapters themselves, one of the more popular options is the Jupiter. This is the Jupiter adapter. It's got a nice swivel in the back. Again, these swivels clamp right under the hose. There's no need to glue them, and they make installation very easy. With the Jupiter, simply locks in place, and then you will put your screw back in there, and the XT60 comes out the back, connecting to your main power lead. Very, very simple. Next up for adapters, we've got our glue-on mag wells, and these are very simple. They essentially glue onto an existing mag well. And the reason we did this is that gluing onto an existing mag well is a lot cheaper than printing this kind of unit vertically. We may offer a mag well replacement, but they're different for each blasters, so this lets you convert what you want. This one here is set up for a rival finisher, which I thought was rather hilarious. This one here is specifically set up for something that's a little more useful, and that's my rival Hera. And so this would just pop right to the bottom, and you are good to go with a really, really high capacity, great setup for a semi-automatic blaster. Pretty sweet, actually. Next up is the Percy's adapter. This comes in a total of 6 parts due to the swivel. So you've got a front part, a back part, and this one locks into place right on the top rail of the blaster. This does require splitting the shell open just at the top, so you do need to remove 5 or 6 screws to open it up, but it's a very, very easy install, and it doesn't change anything on your blaster. I wanted this to be rock solid so that if you dropped your blaster, the hose could literally hold the entire thing, and we did achieve that objective. And again, this one includes the double swivel. It is a little funky coming off the top of the blaster, but if you come up with a better way to put a feed system into the Percy's without requiring massive amounts of cutting, I am all ears. Next, we've got the Chaos adapter. Now, the Chaos is a phenomenal option for the Proton pack. It shoots 10 rounds a second, and it's got a terrible magazine, so who wouldn't want to take this blaster and just pop that in, and you've got a nice swivel connection, your hose coming out of there, and you are basically good to go when it comes to the Proton pack. For those going a little more DIY route, I did make a little bolt-on connector. This has got 4 screw holes and a simple twist that you could use as sort of a DIY method if you're going to bolt this onto some existing feed that you're going to route into, say, like a rival Charger or some other rival blaster where you might want to customize the hose path to make it more specific. This just gives you a good interface to this same nice swivel, because it was one of the more tricky things to design and have work correctly if you're doing this on your own. Lastly, not available at launch, is one of my tried and true favorites. This is the Zeus, of course, and this will replace the entire mag well, and with the feed system coming off the left side with a swivel. Or rather with a double swivel. And this is going to be a really sweet blaster setup. The only problem here is that you do need to be careful with the rate of fire, because the rate of fire on the pack is so high that it can really push this blaster to its limit. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave a comment on the video or shoot us an email. If anything is unclear, we're always here to help.